Okay, today the story that we're going to talk about is the famous story of the feeding of the 5,000. Now, this is a very common story that we hear a lot when we talk about the miracles of Jesus, so it is most likely that you've probably already heard of the story. Well, if you haven't, this is what the story is, and we were going to talk about it. So, how the story begins is that Jesus was on his way to Galilee, and he crossed the sea over to Galilee, because he wanted to teach. So he went over with his disciples, and a large crowd of people began to approach him. A very, very large crowd of people. And they went to the side of a mountain. And there's a lot of people, and Jesus was with his disciples. And the crowd just kept growing, and more people started to come. They started to show up. So Jesus' disciples, Philip, approached him to Jesus because he was concerned. He said, "Jesus, this is too many people. This is too much. How are we going to feed all these people? They want to hear you speak, but how are we going to keep them around if they don't have anything to eat? They'll be hungry." So Jesus knows that there is nothing impossible for Jesus. Nothing. Jesus can do everything. So there was a small boy. This small boy said, "Well, I only have 2 fish and 5 loaves of bread." So he had 2 fish. This is 1 fish. And this is a shark, but a shark is a fish, so 2 fish. And I don't have bread, but I do have a lemon. So we're going to pretend this is bread. And we're going to pretend there's 5 of them. This is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 bread, 2 fish. But obviously this isn't enough, because there were more than 5,000 people down there. It's a very, very large crowd to hear Jesus speak, which is very good, but there was no food. So Jesus took the bread and the fish, and he said, he raised it up to the Lord, to God the Father. And then there was more. Obviously I don't have more, but there was more. All of a sudden, with God's mighty power, there was more fish and more bread, and enough to feed everyone in this huge crowd. Everyone was fed. So we know already that random person like myself or you or anyone can't necessarily make this much just out of thin air, because I cannot simply go like this and a fish will just appear, or let alone more than 5,000. It's a lot. So what does this tell us about Jesus and about God? So how do we say this? What we know is that Jesus and God, they are all powerful, because, well, who made fish? The answer would be God. Jesus, he made fish. He made all the fish. Even the sharks. Woo! Woo! Even the sharks were also fish. Jesus, God, made these fishes. He made the ingredients of which we use to make bread. He also made lemons, but this is bread. At the moment, this is bread. So, really, it wouldn't be that far off to see him just make these things like that. Like this. Suddenly, fish. Suddenly, bread. A lemon. Because he is greater, and he has created these things. So he has that power to bring them in, to have them created from thin air, basically, which is what happened. And no normal person can do this. Only God and only Jesus. Because as the fish from the sea, and the birds in the air, and humans, lemons, bread, ingredients for bread, everything was made by him. Hence why he can just make it. He can say, "I want this," and then it's there. You and me can't do it. I can't do it. I'm sure even Pastor Mark can't do it. We cannot do it. Only he can. Because he is all powerful. All powerful. All powerful, which means exactly that. He has all the power. He is the power. He is the biggest. power. And this is why he can take 2 fish and make it infinite fish if he wanted. He could make infinite fish if he wanted. But he took 2 fish and 5 loaves of bread, and he made it enough to feed this crowd of 5,000 people. Not only did he make enough, but there was left over from this feast. From this feast in the crowd, there was leftover food. That's a lot of food. 12 baskets of it. Imagine. I don't think we can even imagine what 12 large baskets of bread and fish would look like. That's a lot. And all these people had already eaten. Probably eaten their fill, most likely. They ate until they were full. They ate until their bellies could not go anymore. This is truly incredible when we think about comparing this feat, which to us is so huge, so big, but to God, it's really not that big, because God is huge. He's immense, and he can do all these things. He can create incredible creatures. He can make food, mountains, air, oxygen we breathe. So, a few fish and little bread isn't that much. It's cookie crumbs, breadcrumbs even. Because that's just how powerful he is. And that is what is truly incredible about this story. Because sometimes we can't think about how many people that is. I doubt there has been a time when even you yourself have been anywhere near a large crowd. 5,000 people. I don't think I've ever been in that many people. Crowd that big. I don't think so. Much less now that we're in a pandemic. But that's besides the point. It's really hard to imagine. And truly, it's incredible, because that is how amazing God is. How big he is. And I think that's really cool. I think that's really awesome. That all these people, they wanted to hear Jesus speak. And not only did they get to hear him speak, most likely, but they also got to experience some of the miracle that came along with it. And I think that's pretty awesome. One can't even imagine what it must have been like. Just sitting there on the side of the mountain, twiddling your thumbs, I want to hear what this Jesus guy has to say. I'm intrigued. Many people have told me great things about him. I'm very, very curious. But I'm also hungry. That's all right. I'll get food later. And then suddenly, God blesses, and there's fish, and there's bread. I think that's incredible. It really is incredible. And that is why these small things, well, small for God. That's pretty big for us. That's a lot of food, a lot of people. But it's truly is incredible. And we can stop to think about that every day. You can look out your window and see a bird or a tree and think, man, God is cool. And this is just one of the many miracles that happened throughout the Bible. One of the many, and there are many. So that is the story of the 5,000, of the feeding of the 5,000, which is pretty cool. It's pretty cool.